Hello, welcome to Desde Aquí. I am Gisela. In this video, I am bringing you Eliza Factor's story. She's the founder of Extreme Kids and Crew, and right now she has Lonely Worm Farms, where she's connecting disability, art, and ecology. As well, I want to say that what we're going to have in this dispatch. We are bringing this part of an intention that I had about 2-3 years ago to create a podcast called From Right Here. So now we have Desde Aquí. It's a YouTube video, but what I have and what I did with Eliza is just audio recordings. So we're going to have a combination of a conversation we had, some documentary style situations and moments when the whole family is up in New Hampshire having fun. We're going to have as well a little bit of an excerpt of a reading of her book, Strange Beauty, that she is actually reading herself. We're going to have an accent of music and my narration, telling you where we're going because it's a podcast. It's my experiment of making a podcast. And so this is a present for Extreme Kids. I'm making this as a present to start doing and, invite people to think about these notions of disability, learn about lives of disabled individuals, learn about what their caregiver supporters are doing as well to promote ideas, to create conversations, discussions, to create knowledge around disability. So for me, this is very exciting, to do this presence for Extreme Kids. And finally, let's just go see Eliza and hear everything that she is going to bring us right now. Go, Eliza. I'm dying to hear you. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to hear you. Today we visit Eliza Factor in her house in Brooklyn, a slim woman who likes to work her body, a writer of several novels, a wife, a mother of 3 kids, 2 teenage girls, and a boy with a disability. To describe him, I'll tell you what my eyes see. He has a limited mobility and is considered nonverbal.
Like when Felix was born, there was a lot of confusion as to why he was so floppy, and so we spent a lot of time in hospitals getting him tested, and then lots of time in social service agencies, and lots of time in therapy offices. And it was wonderful in some ways because Felix was a wonderful kid and we really enjoyed him, and he was really funny, and he was making wonderful progress being himself, like learning how to sit up was an enormous thing for him, and he had a really great laugh, and he was very affectionate. So he was wonderful, and it was fun being his mother. But most of my time was just spent with therapists and doctors, and I couldn't really relate to other parents because when you have a kid that kind of fits into the world, it's a time where you're growing a community of parents. So you're kind of being pulled into community by having a child. Whereas if your kid has multiple disabilities and stuff, you're often kind of ejected and kind of directed to the world of institutions and hospitals and such. That's the sound of Felix wanting to hear music, right? You want music? That's what you want? Can you say that sound again? Yeah, there's his sign. He's making the sign for music. Yeah, okay. We're going to get some music going.
Felix was Eliza's motivation to create Extreme Kids and Crew in 2010. When my son Simon was first identified with a disability, it became part of her weekend routine. Go for concerts, play, art making, and just relax and have fun as a family with other people like us. We've grown along with Extreme Kids. I remember Felix in the early days, lying on the bean bags, rattling a heavy ring full of keys. Here's Felix. Now, if you can tell me a little bit about, the everyday life, how is a day in the life?
A day in the life of Felix?
Yeah.
So Felix now is going to this wonderful school called Crotchet Mountain School up in New Hampshire. He started going there when he was 10 and a half, and we are really lucky to be able to stay up there in a little house nearby in the summers and Christmas and Thanksgiving and 3-day weekends. So we kind of have our family time is up in New Hampshire, and then Jason's work and the girls' school is down in New York. So whenever we're together as a family, which is about a third of the year, we spend a lot of time at Felix's school. Sometimes he comes and spends the night with us in the little house, but his school is created for people with, significant physical disabilities as well as emotional disabilities, and it's just a really nice place to hang out. Like it's easy for him to take a bath there, and it's just easier.
Everything's set up.
So so we and he's more comfortable, and he really likes his bedroom. He has his own bedroom, and he's a teenager, so like he kind of, he'll come and spend the night with us, but then he wants to go back to his room and that feeling of his cave.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time hanging out at his house, which is Hawthorne, which is a nice little house where 6 kids live, and all of them have one-on-one aides, so it's pretty lively. There's a bunch of kids, and I've gotten to know the kids over the years, and I love them.
Here's Felix's aide.
Good, but I'm going to advocate for a longer shower head.
Okay.
You know Felix.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's because when he's reclined in the tub, he needs to rinse off, but he has to drink the water.
And we'll take Felix on walks around the campus. It's on top of a mountain, so there's like a nature walk that goes through a pine forest, and then we dip down past the school, and then we kind of push his wheelchair up the hill so that we can see Mount Monadnock. He's like 150 pounds now, and the wheelchair is like it's 180 or something like that. Pushing it up is hard. But so we do a lot of like just walking, which is always something I've done with Felix. He loves to be outside. And they have a great therapy pool in the winter that's warm, so we can all go swimming together in the warm water. And that is heavenly because Felix, he has so much more freedom of motion in the water than he does on land. And so we kind of can dance around, and he can kind of balance, and he loves the water. And we go,
beautiful.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And in the summer, it's even better because there's a lake, and so you can go down to the lake and swim in the lake. And his school has their own little lakefront, so it's terrific. It's set up with outhouses with tables where you can like change, diapers and stuff on adults, which is obviously most places just really hard to do things like go to the bathroom. So that's amazing. There's dragonflies and
so many bugs. Lots of bugs. Birch tree.
We hear Felix's young sisters Miranda and Happy arguing why they get more bitten by bugs than their parents Jason and Eliza.
Me and Happy have tastier blood than you, though.
Yeah, we have fresh blood.
Oh.
No.
And my blood is pickled?
No, I mean, Mom also, but I feel like you just don't get bit as
little
much.
tadpoles nibbling your toes, and it's so fun. It's so good. And so we'll go swimming there, and then we'll all pile into the van. We got a wheelchair van through ADA, through American with Disabilities Act. And we'll take Felix down to Harvest Market, which is the supermarket in Greenville, and it has a little window where you can order ice cream. And so I'll sit at the picnic table and eat ice cream.
And everybody having ice cream.
Everybody, Felix loves ice cream. We all love ice cream. Felix adores ice cream. And we all have to eat it kind of quickly because if we still have some left and he's finished,
He's going to go
he's
for yours.
Yeah, so, that's like just a swimming and ice cream and walking around a mountain. Those are kind of like the major activities of our summer. I love it. I mean, he goes to school during the day. He gets his therapy. So like from 9 to 3, he's in a school day, and the girls are at a camp, and I'm writing. So like but then afterwards we have this lovely
The afternoon for the family.
afternoons, family, and the weekends.
That's beautiful.
It's so nice.
Chocolate? Chocolate?
So can we get a couple
Yeah.
more, I'm guessing?
Okay, he wants chocolate.
Felix, you sure you want chocolate? Not mint?
I've chosen for him. Well, no, but he's done
You want chocolate?
Yeah, and I'm getting
Okay.
good news fries.
All right. Do you guys want it on a cone or like cone with a...
I love it. It's, I mean, you know, life was, it was so difficult when he was going through all that stuff, and it was so hard finding, you know, like we never really found a good school for him in New York. So when he was living at home, it was wonderful, but also it was just incredibly exhausting and sometimes really depressing. And so like this school has just kind of been a miracle to have so much time with him that's just joyful and yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're there, as you said, you know, exhausted and right.
Yeah,
And then
and you're just so overwhelmed because you're organizing so much. I mean, just like the amount of organization and the bureaucracy and stuff of keeping, you know, the schools and the therapists and the, you know, and then taking care of your other kids. It's like all you're ever doing is, you know, kind of fixing disasters that continuously are breaking out. And then, so, but there he has this whole team of people and they all talk to each other. And so like, you're really not alone as a parent. Like there's a lot of people that are concerned about him, and there are a lot of people helping you get him a new wheelchair and stuff like that. And it's great. We need more schools like that.
So how did you get to that school? It was just kind of like a lot of search.
Oh, well, how we got to it is he got kicked out of the school he was going to, and so like there really wasn't a school in New York that would take him. I mean, because it was the combination of being physically disabled and considered nonverbal and that violence and screaming. I mean, he was really disruptive. I mean, and I understood. I mean, like how no one could concentrate on their schoolwork if you have somebody who's like screaming louder than a jackhammer and tearing at his skin. It's not conducive to learning. So we didn't have a school for him, and I didn't really know how I could homeschool him because he hates to be stuck at home. He likes to be out in the community.
Yeah.
And so get him into a residential school. Like they were like, he's bright. He has so much potential, but he needs to be in a residential school. Like you can't really. He needs more than 30 hours a week. Like a good residential school has the regular 30-hour a week school day, but then like there's all of this communication with the aides and stuff. So the kids are continuously being
taken care of,
taught and taken care of and trained, you know, throughout the day. And so it's not, you know, and it's regular. Like, you know, there's just a dependable routine which you can't get at home. Yeah. I mean, especially if there's other kids. I mean, it's just like you can't do that. And so I guess I'd always thought of residential schools kind of as a place of like a negative thing, like as a place of last resort. Like if we just can't do it anymore, we could, you know, send Felix to a residential school. But when I was at Center for Discovery, and it was so nice, and these people were so helpful, and they were doing such good stuff, and I could see the way Felix was like kind of lighting up there and interacting with them. I realized that he had much greater possibility of actually learning in an environment like that than the environment we had for him. And so once I realized that, then I could go through the bureaucratic, difficult procedure of having him put in the residential student bucket of the Department of Education, which is, you know, a bureaucratic thing, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't, they agreed. It wasn't like I had to fight.
It's more like it's a better environment that I could provide him. You know, that starts with that recognition, right? And then from there, it's like you see him in a much better place, right? And
he's always, like, it's been so clear to me that it's a good place from him from the way that he is at that school. I mean, he that's our dog. Come here. he glows. Like he sits back and he just looks back. He had this kind of wonderful pride when he was like 1 to 5, and then once he started school in the city, you saw that light kind of wither a little bit, and it got worse. And, you know, like I didn't see that pride for years, and then when he started at Crotchet Mountain, all of a sudden there it was again. And so I was like, okay, well, if he's proud of himself, he's in the right place.
I think that's the most important part, right?
But did you see the white chicken?
I did. I did. You're a monomaniac. Isn't that a great word, Felix? That was a popular word in 1920s. A monomaniac. It means obsessed with one thing.
Eliza has a profound commitment to promote a better understanding of disability.
Right, yeah.
So, like, if you don't use the term disabled, then you're
losing.
Like, you're losing your rights.
Yeah.
And, you know, or you're taking them, but you're not acknowledging all of the people that have fought really hard to pass those laws. And so, I mean, it feels to me like people have worked so hard to have the laws that we have that have really made things better. So we'll just use that. That happens to be the word that we're using to signify all of, you know, the 20% of Americans who have a major impediment in, you know, whether it's physical or mental or intellectual or whatever.
Or emotional.
Emotional. I mean, basically all of us at some point or another, you know, have disabilities, major, minor.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not something that you really can avoid.
Yeah, it's part of the human experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so then you're talking about how much this have changed your experience. You know, it came really with you started your own family, right?
Yeah.
And just having your kid.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that's continuously evolving. Like, so, I mean, there's been so many epiphanies along the way. I mean, I guess probably the first thing I realized was when Felix was around 3, I really began to understand that disability was like a social idea. One way that you can wrap your mind around disability as a social construct versus the actual bodily or mental oddity or problem is by using the social model of disability's language. So the social model of disability is an academic model that arose in the 1980s in Britain and is widely used by disability scholars today. But the idea is that you have impairments, like, you know, a medical impairment or a psychological impairment or something, right, which makes you different from most other people. Maybe it's a problem, maybe it's not. It's just a fact. Like, you have, right, you know, you can't walk, or, you know, you can't speak, or, you know, these kinds of things that just really make you different. However, it's not necessarily disabling if you live in an inclusive society. So if you're in a wheelchair and you can get to work and you can get to school and you can have housing, then your impairment, your physical impairment, isn't really a disabling situation.
Because you're able to
able to participate in society, and society is able to learn from you. I mean, like, I think one of the really important things about inclusion, my conclusion about inclusion, is that the kind of conventional way of seeing this is that mainstream society should be helping these people with disabilities because that's just the right thing to do. And that's fine, but it misses the fact that when people with disability, people with impairment, shall we say, aren't integrated into society, society gets really weird. I mean, it's like it's only people that look and act a certain way. It's like it lops off so much of humanity that you get a false idea of what it means to be human. Yeah. And you have, you know, you suffer. You're afraid of accidents. You're afraid of, like, what happens to the body when it's not, you know, performing like a very healthy 30-year-old body. Right. there's so much to be learned from people with impairments, and we lose out on that if we don't include everyone. I thought a lot about that in the beginning, about how Felix, like how I have all these things that I can't do, but my things I can't do are normal. Like I lose my keys, but loads of people lose my keys. I can't tell left from right, but loads of people can't. And I was thinking about even, like people who lose their tempers or like, I mean, the more I thought about, the more disabled our world seemed. I was like, why, like we have wars. We've been talking about for like thousands of years how we have to stop having wars, and then we can't seem to do that. Like, like you're like, we have to be reasonable, and then it's like, let's kill everybody. I was like, there's a completely disabled way of doing things, but it's considered normal. It's like, because that's what we do, and that's what our economy is based on, and that's where we send off our. I mean, it's like it's crazy. Whereas like my son is considered disabled, but he'll never fight in a war. He brings people together. He's incredibly loving, and he brings out the best in people. So in some ways, why is he the one that's disabled? So like all of those kinds of thoughts would be, pouring in through my mind, and then I just kind of realized that everyone was disabled, and who cares? But I guess that part of how it's transformed me is just that understanding that we're all just struggling, and when you're trying to hide things you can't do, or you're ashamed of big parts of yourself, it's so debilitating, and it's such a universal thing that people are always like, there's always these things that we are holding and don't want anyone to know about, and I guess I feel like I have been unburdened from a lot of that through this whole process, and so it's been transformative in that way. It's been kind of liberating in that way. On the other hand, I've been lucky. I've been lucky because I have a really strong family. I've got a lot of people supporting me. We've been able to get services, and I'm in a lucky moment right now. And I remember when I remember hearing people say things that were, I don't know. So sometimes it can just be so hard that to hear the happy side of something when you're really struggling and everything's so hard and you haven't had sleep for a week. It's just like, shut up. This is just really hard. Yeah. There's nothing good about it. Yeah. And I've been in those moments, and that's true too. I mean, that's the thing. They're both true. The dark and the light, they're both there. I happen to be in a light spot right now, so I'm seeing the light.
So you're talking about more dark moments.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
If you want to, yeah. I mean, I guess I could. I wrote that book. I wrote a memoir about Felix called Strange Beauty.
Yes, I read the book. It's so honest and moving. Here's an excerpt.
Let's just look at it. Yeah, okay. Should I go? Are you ready? I hate writing about this time. My body shrinks from it, and my mind skitters from place to place. I remember my bones vibrating, weird shafts of strength, and a continuous jumpiness. We were always in a state of emergency. A 2009 study showed that the level of stress hormones in mothers of teenagers with autism is comparable to the stress levels of combat soldiers. This sounds about right. The intensity and suddenness with which Felix would explode was like a mine going off in a sunny meadow. You are taking a walk on a lovely afternoon. There are butterflies and clouds scuttling in a blue sky, and then, bam, that shriek, that slap, that bite, until nothing exists except for a screaming child consumed with a pure, earth-erasing rage. The soul-sinking splat of that sound. I hadn't heard it in 2 years. I had thought it was a thing of the past. Felix grabbed one of his cheeks as if he wanted to twist it right off. He hit the other with a fierceness that stopped time. We were right back where we were in the season of his hip operation. The world that was solid a minute before, the kitchen, the girls, the dog's frantic nose, and the nook of my knees, everything seemed to dissolve. Nothing existed except for a howling boy and his determination to tear at his flesh, to rip it and pummel it with every ounce of his strength. The fits of 2012 felt harder than those of 2008, 2010. Felix was stronger. 2 years of horseback riding, swimming and swinging on his walker as a gymnast swings on parallel bars, had developed remarkably powerful muscles in his upper body. The blows he delivered upon himself were scary. The duration also increased. When he was younger, the periods of peacefulness had outweighed the period of violence. Now the ratio turned. For every 2 weeks of fits, we might have a week of normalcy. Partly because of Extreme Kids, I talk so much about the positive aspects of disability and how it brings people together and possibilities of growth and creative thinking, all of the kind of stuff that grows out of disability. But Felix has gone through incredibly dark, violent periods, and which is related to the way his brain works. And you know, he so clearly wants to just tear himself to pieces. I mean, he'll scream and hit himself for hours on end, for days on end, through the night. More, so there would just be times in our family where no one had, slept more than 2 or 3 hours at a stretch, for months, and Felix was just bloody and scabbed, and the police were coming, and the child service agency was coming. People were like, "What's going on? Why can't you control this? Why can't And we were trying everything. We were taking him to trying out different drugs, trying out different therapies, but we were so tired. It's just that exhaustion and that heartbreak of seeing your child hurt himself like that, and of course, physically, you have to physically restrain him. So you're kind of fighting. So it was incredibly difficult, and I wanted to talk about that because I feel like that's not at all a unique experience. That is, like dealing with the violence of a child, even who isn't disabled. Like a lot of kids going through their teenage years have really, they go through really tough times, and we don't really talk about how parents cope or don't cope, or how we can help each other, and there aren't really any social remedies for it except for like calling the police, which is just not a smart thing to do. Like you're not going to call the police on your kids, and there needs to be I just really feel there needs to be a more open discussion of the violence within all of us, instead of this kind of way we have of like making a cage where these are the violent people and they're bad and all the rest of us are good, and because that's not how things are. But yeah, I feel like when you acknowledge it, it loses you lose a little of your fear, and that actually helps reduce the likelihood of your own violence, because violence so often comes out of fear and pressure.
Right. Yeah.
Panic,
And as well, the fact that it's being pushed aside and just really not. As well, we don't know our own violence. We don't know our own dark sides because we don't. It's scary to go into looking into them, right? So when your situation puts you in that place where it's like, okay, it's right here, and you're exhausted.
It really is. The exhaustion is just, anyway. That's I guess that the situations I've been in with Felix have made me. It's hard for me to be judgmental about. I hear terrible stories, and it's hard for me to be judgmental about people who've done terrible things just because I'm like, they must have been in such an awful spot, and now they've ruined their lives. Now they've done something that they'll never be able to really forgive themselves for, and it's just so awful. But I guess I can understand how it happens.
It's part of. It's part of the response, right? Yeah. That you are just when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it. you don't see clear. You are just, it's very cloudy, and you feel like
You don't feel like you're sitting around at the table having a conversation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's I mean, that place of pain, that place of challenge, that place of darkness, that place of this heaviness is almost like you can breathe and you can't.
I think being not able to breathe is a perfect way. Yeah, you can't get enough oxygen, and so you feel this pressure that makes you
get out.
Crazy and do anything to save, to stop the situation. Terrible stuff. But anyway, so Felix has brought me to all of these interesting spots, and I feel like I've just learned more from him than about anybody else, and I've learned a lot from all kinds of people, but he's probably made those lessons the clearest and opened my mind and heart more than anyone else.
Right. So right now you have this opportunity to reach out to those who might not have the experience of disability. What would you tell them?
That it's nothing to be afraid of. Some people often ask me, if what am I supposed to say when if I don't want to be offensive and da 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 da. But my general feeling is that if you can get rid of your fear and get rid of your pity, anything you say will be fine. Like what people are reacting to is a tone of fear or pity or otherness. And if you can just realize, that's me, that's just me, then you'll be fine.
So it's really your attitude.
Yeah, but it's easier said than done. Ridding yourself of fear and pity is like a life's work. But that's what I say.
The touch of disability is deep and fluid. It changes. It brings unexpected parts to light. Discomfort, pride, shame, joy. It makes you recognize that life is composed of bright, dark, gray, colorful, loud spots. We wouldn't be humans if we don't recognize in full all our nooks. We learn and get closer to our truth as we embrace the totality of who we are as humanity, with our diversity and with the depth that disability brings to us. Thank you, Eliza, for showing yourself. From right here, a podcast recognizing how we've been touched by disability. From right here, from the heart, so we can talk, so we can listen, so we can be one, so we can be one, so we can be one. In this episode participated Eliza, Felix, Jason, Miranda, and Happy Factor. It was produced and edited by Gisela Sanders Alcantara. 2020. I hope this really compels you, just as much as it compels me and continues to compel me, even though I heard that show so many times. See you in the next one.